Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 5 of MPower, and man, we got a controversial topic today, man.
Y'all not ready.
This is
Y'all are not ready.
This is definitely going to be one of the most interesting, challenging, but I still feel like productive episodes that we've ever done. So, man, I don't even know how to really even just introduce this. This is a lot, but I guess I'll basically just start it off by saying there's a lot of controversy going around right now.
Especially in a world today where, as a society, we're really sensitive to certain things.
Right.
And sometimes we don't like to talk about those. I mean, we talk about it all the time in our episodes. Sometimes we don't like to talk about those issues. We don't like to talk about those things that are hard to talk about. But they're necessary because that's where progress comes.
Right.
That's where we tend to move forward. So us today, when we're talking about what we're about to talk about, our intention is not to bash anybody. Our intention is not to purposely offend anybody. Our intention is just to talk about, just the things that we see in the world and our opinions on certain things.
And to ask questions. Legit, we've firmly established by now that we are no experts by any means. We're just two young black men.
Attractive.
You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying, bro.
But we're just two men who like to put our thoughts out there and ask questions that are legitimately on our minds, so that way we can start a productive conversation. So I guess without beating around the bush too much, there's basically a lot of controversy going on. A lot of controversy right now going about the Dave Chappelle episode that was recently posted to Netflix. And Netflix is getting a lot of heat right now, just because this new special that he's released recently. I believe it was maybe 2 weeks ago. I believe it's called The Closer. And so, if you've never have you ever watched any of Dave Chappelle's episodes or specials before?
I've never seen the latest one.
You haven't seen the latest, but have you ever watched any of his ever?
It's been a long time, bro.
Really?
But yeah, I'm familiar with his style. It's been a long time.
Okay. Personally, I've seen all of his Netflix specials. I've definitely watched how his comedic style has grown over time, about some things that he doesn't do anymore, some new things that he's picked up on. And honestly, being full flat out, I've always cried laughing at his stuff.
It's Dave Chappelle, bro.
It's Dave Chappelle. He's so good at what he does. And it's just I just can't help but laugh, And but then we have to pose the question, why do we laugh? Especially with the types of jokes that he makes. Because honestly, I didn't want to say this, I guess, right up front, but now I kind of feel like it makes sense to introduce this point here. Is one of the biggest things that he tried to take away in his last special is that I don't punch down on people, I punch across. And if you don't know what that means, basically, it's basically him saying because you know what the types of jokes that he makes. He'll make jokes about all different types of backgrounds. He'll make jokes about, white people, black people, Asian people, he'll make jokes about different sexual identities, if you're straight, if you're, gay, if you're whatever. He'll make jokes about everyone. So, to me, he's really leveled out the playing field about who he'll make jokes to, and the types of jokes that he makes about them aren't the types of jokes that belittle people, but they're just jokes about just the people in general. But not everybody takes it that way. Not everybody sees it that way. And some people think oh, well, if you don't really belong to this sort of background, then you really have no say to or no place to make these types of jokes. And I guess we have to really get into that today. We have to ask ourselves why is there offense in certain things being said, and why are there not offense in other things being said? So that's going to be really tough to break down. But
yeah, but that's really, really good, though, because it makes you think, why, just like you said, why does this offend you and why doesn't this offend you if both of them are just as bad?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
A perfect example. It's just a simple example as, let's say, as two different races, but two different scenarios. You have a black guy that hears you hear this happens a lot. You have a black guy that hears a really, really horrible racist joke about black people, and they laugh. or they either laugh or they get very, very offended, versus when they hear like a really offensive joke on another race, whether it be like a Caucasian person or a white person, and they tend to either laugh it off or get very offended. It's like both are bad. Both should offend you. You know what I'm saying? Both
Right.
should be something that at least causes something in your heart. But what makes that difference between the things that you choose are funny versus the things that are, oh no, that's not funny, when
Yeah,
they're both
like
just as bad?
everyone has a different sense of humor, but like some things are just flat out not acceptable. You know, obviously, like there is a line, but like one of Dave Chappelle's biggest things is he likes to like inch close to the line, and I definitely feel like he has crossed it in like a few occasions. But I feel like especially recently, especially in this last one, like I really tried. Like I heard the comments before I ever even like watched it, and I really tried to understand what he was saying. And a lot of people right now, they're basically saying like he hates trans people, he always like belittles them, and like after watching that special, I legitimately don't believe that he feels that way. But here's what I will say. If you're offended by something that someone says, sometimes like I'll myself, like I'll read too much into something that maybe someone says about me. But either way, if you feel offended, if you feel hurt by something, then your feelings are valid. I'm not gonna say like, oh, you shouldn't feel hurt by that or whatever. Like, no, like if you're feeling a certain way, there's a reason why you feel that way. And maybe like on certain occasions, sometimes if you adjust your thinking, if you adjust your mindset, then you'll realize, hey, maybe I don't need to feel this way about this. But either way, like if you're feeling bad, then like that's okay. And that it's okay to like say that. And like we can't belittle that. We can't say like, oh well, you have no reason to feel bad. We can talk about it and be like, okay, like let's get down, why do you feel bad? But like it's still a feeling, so we can't belittle that.
I think the thing about that too is that sometimes as people, we go through things. We go through terrible things. We have our own struggles, our own will. We're all different. We're all not perfect. Episode 2.
Right.
But the thing about that is, just because you have a struggle and you may feel like your struggle is worse than somebody else, it doesn't give you the right to belittle their struggle, because ultimately you're not in their shoes. Ultimately, you don't know how what they're going through is affecting them, even though you think it may not affect you as much. So I just think it's important that as people, we understand, even if we don't understand where someone is coming from, even if we don't understand why is this person tripping like this over this, we still have to be loving and just patient in the fact that that's their walk. You know what I'm saying? That's what they are going through.
Right. We have to be patient with people, because everybody's different. Everyone has different sensitivities and different traumas that when you deal with them, they cause you to be hurt by different things that maybe other people wouldn't be initially hurt by. But I guess one of the biggest questions that I want to ask today was was Dave Chappelle wrong? Was he wrong in the stuff that he was saying? The way he goes about it, obviously, us as Christian men, we wouldn't, I wouldn't say that stuff, just because it's well, for one, I don't curse and stuff, and two, there's a certain standard that we have to set, when we have
Absolutely.
conversations. But at the same time, there's a reason why I find stuff humorous though, because he jokes about black people a lot, he does, and so basically what I'm saying is I really feel like he equals out the playing field. Because to belittle someone, because like I said, one of the biggest things that he said was, I don't punch down on people, I punch across. That means you have to equal out the playing field, and you have to truly give an equal amount of just I guess heat towards everyone, regardless if you're a majority or you're a minority, or just wherever you are, wherever you came from, whatever you identify as, you gotta give it to them all.
And I think this is very, very interesting. I think with Dave Chappelle and him doing that, just like you said, evening out the playing field, but also being non-biased.
Right.
But that concept, even though he's a comedian, even though he may say some things that are just oh, shoot, okay, what are you going there? But the fact is, you're right. He doesn't just hit on one race. He doesn't just hit on one group of people. He hits on everybody.
He even hits on Christians.
Yeah.
And as a Christian male, when he'll make jokes, I'm yo, that's out of pocket, but it's funny,
And then I think that as people, if we took that same mentality and we applied it to other areas of life, I feel like the world would just be a little bit better.
What do you mean by that?
So like his obviously he's a comedian and he's making jokes, but his mindset, at least from what I've seen, his mindset is everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like we're all the same. You know what I'm saying? Even though we're all different, we have different ethnicities, we're all people and we should respect each other the same. Right. Even though he is, disrespecting people, his mentality is still everybody, not just one group of people. As people, I feel like our mentality should be, everybody's the same. You know what I'm saying? We're all people. You know what I'm saying? Even, as Christians, obviously, there's different standards and different beliefs and things like that, and we can't compromise. But at the same time, we still need to see people as people. We still need to see, understand and really see where people are coming from. Right. And I just think that that's very important because a lot of the problems are that we look at one group, we never look at ourselves. It's Neverland 2. I'm still bumping that joint on repeat, man. But then there's, I can't, maybe it's just the lack of sleep. I cannot remember the song, but he's like, maybe you should, instead of holding a stone, hold up a mirror. You know what I'm saying?
That's falling.
Yeah. I couldn't think of the name right off the bat, but it's like, I'm listening to that verse and I'm like, wow, like that was deep, First the reference to, them about to stone the prostitute in the Bible, and then Jesus like, okay, right. Whoever doesn't have sin, throw the first stone, just fire. Y'all should check that out for sure. But it made me really think. I was like, wait a minute, like we're so quick to condemn someone, but we're very, very slow to look ourselves in the mirror and realize, wait, am I a little bit of what I'm condemning? Like, right. Do I have traits of what I am judging someone off of?
Right, because, and I think humor is such a hard topic to go about because it's like, we make jokes about ourselves a lot. Like, I make lots of black jokes towards myself, and you don't know how many white people I've heard being like, oh, I hate white people when they're white themselves, Or like just, like people like to make jokes about themselves. They like to make jokes about trauma and stuff that they've been through, but sometimes I'll come across something interesting. I'll come across me as a black man. I'll come across a white man who will make a black joke, and instantly, like my mind goes just like, wait a minute, you can't do that, But I'm just like, wait a minute though. Am I actually hurt? And it depends. It depends on the joke. Some things genuinely are like belittling, and it's just like, oh, if you make like a stereotype joke where it's just like, oh, he doesn't have a dad or whatever, then I'm just gonna look at you stupid. But if you actually take the time out to make like an intelligent, thoughtful like joke, and like I don't even know what an example of that would be, but like sometimes like they catch me off guard, and I'm just like, that was good. Like you got a hand, so it's like, let me hand it to you. That was good. I like that, and I'll laugh at it. But again, not everyone's like me though. Like not everyone holds the same values. Not everyone just like has the same sensitivity to certain things. So again, like if you're offended by things, like that's okay, and like you can't be judged for that. Just gotta talk about it. Like, why do you feel that way? So I guess now we really have to like start getting into the meat of this, because I felt like all of that was just kind of the intro. Like honestly, because even right now I'm like trying, like part of me is like trying to like hold back, but I'm like, nah, we gotta go all in, bro. So
yes, sir.
Man, so one of the things that he said in this special was he talked about feminism. I just know a lot of people just like their butt cheeks just clenched, listening to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was talking about feminism, and he was just like, he researched what like the actual thing meant, and he was just like, it means anyone who supports the advancement and betterment and equal opportunity of women. That generalization of what he said, pretty much. He was just like, by that definition, I'm a feminist. I'm just like, I feel like we can all agree with that, like, and we can all say like, if that's the definition, then like, oh yeah, like we all want the equal opportunity and advancement for women, so technically we're all feminists, right? If you can't at least agree with that, then we really gotta have a talk. But obviously there's a negative connotation about feminism nowadays of like different things going on, and like some say like, oh, the movement is anti-black, which is another thing that he talked about, or just like, it's like not inclusive to trans people sometimes, like all sorts of different things. And so one of the things that he said really stuck out to me, man. He mentioned how there's like a group of feminists who are very just anti-trans because essentially they believe that for someone to be trans, they feel that way about the same way that us as black people would feel about another race using blackface.
Interesting.
And when he said that, I was just like, wait a minute. Pause. Like, I'm just like, it's like, is he right? Like, so I've never thought about it that way. And like, I'm just like, yo, what? Like, is that true? Like, because I personally, it's just such a big thing that you have to question. It's like, why isn't it the same thing? You know, like, because if you want to break it down, you know, a transgender person is someone who switches from the gender that they were assigned at birth to, or should I say, I guess, the sex they're assigned at birth to the gender identity that they choose to, you know, give to themselves at a later date. Now, there are some people out there who are trying to be transracial. You know, they're you know, and obviously they get canceled for, you know, they try to like put on blackface or they'll like put on extra dark makeup or whatever. And so there's like, I was born, like for an example, I was born white, but I feel black. So I'm gonna use like AAVE and I'm gonna, you know, like change my skin tone and all types of stuff. And we hate on those people. But then we really have to ask ourselves, like, why is there, like, why can you choose to change your gender, but you can't choose to change your race?
So this is where.
Wait, before you even get into that, let me counter and like say I'm not saying that there should be transracial people. I'm completely against that. That's very bad.
Absolutely.
But you know, I'm just saying, like, why do we accept one and not the other?
So this is where the conversation gets rough.
Yeah.
Because, at least from my opinion on these matters is 100% biblical, but in a way it can also be looked at from a non-biblical perspective. In my opinion,
can we get both perspectives?
Oh, absolutely. I'm just gonna start with my regular perspective. In my opinion, they're the same thing. In my opinion, obviously, if we look at somebody that is transracial or someone that is like, you know, a white person wearing blackface or a black person wearing whiteface, it's like, you know, like,
well, actually, I have seen that before. Let me stop.
I mean, yeah, but yeah, it's like, okay, first, what's the purpose of that? Like, what are you doing? I changed it. I'm gonna start with my Christian perspective first, because at least for me, my Christian perspective and my regular perspective, they're pretty much one and the same. But the way that I see it is that, like, being transracial, it's hated on because it's seen as racist, but it's not hated on in terms of you're changing the way that you are. You're changing the way that God created you.
Right.
It's not right because it's not only offensive, you know what I'm saying? It's not only one of those things that's like, okay, you're trying to poke fun at another race in a way, but it's also one of those things that's like, it's one of those things that is just not right. It's one of those things that just, it's not supposed to be. Now, that doesn't mean that I am insensitive to someone that, you know, plays around with transraciality or is in a way transgender. Because just like we just said earlier, is that we need to understand and be sensitive to their feelings and realize that their feelings are valid. But there's a difference between feelings and truth. Right. There's a difference between emotions and, you know, reality. And there's at least I can only talk from my opinion. I can only talk from what's in the Word of God. I can only talk from what I believe. And from those two things, the truth and the reality is that it's one of those things that's unnatural. It's one of those things that the act of it and the process of it is not supposed to happen, even though it does. You know what I'm saying? Even though it does happen.
I want to get deeper into that because, like, obviously as a Christian I have those like same values, but like we have to go deeper than like, oh, it's like unnatural, it's like not supposed to happen, like, because like those are answers that people always hear, and it's just like we really have to like dive into like, okay, like why, and so here's the way I see it. Man, okay, so the world is constantly changing, right? And so with that, it constantly changes the definitions of things sometimes. Like if you look at Webster's dictionary, it's not constantly the same over all these years. Like there's things added, there's things taken away, there's things modified. And that's the same thing with the word sex. Before, the world defined sex and gender as one and the same. Recently, and honestly, I don't even know like when this kind of started happening, but it has happened, and we can't be ignorant to that. Like recently, they've changed the meaning of gender to no longer mean what sex means, is what you're assigned at birth, like the parts you're assigned at birth, to becoming more of an identity of like what you choose to identify as. And regardless of my faith aside, I as a human being can like say like, okay, that's what you want to do. I understand that, and I'm not going to be ignorant towards that. I'm going to be like, okay, yes, this is the new meaning of this. Like, that's what, like, you guys have said. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, like if someone says they feel a certain way, I'm not going to say, oh, you don't feel that way, because then, like, clearly Absolutely. They do, like, clearly they do. So I'm not going to, like, say, oh, wow, like, no, you're not, like, you're being stupid. But versus of, like, the legitimacy of the actual being itself. One of the things that he was saying, going along with that same story about like those group of feminists, what he was saying was like they feel like it's the same thing as blackface because it's like you can try to change certain things, but there'll always be certain attributes about yourself that like what you had before is still going to kind of remain in you, certain physical attributes, whether it be testosterone levels, and I know that those can kind of be adjusted or whatever. And I can't remember everything that he was saying, but like apparently he'd done the research, and I myself haven't even confirmed it. But I'm just going off of what he was saying, like there's like certain things that are just still going to remain different. So the biggest example that he gave was when Caitlyn Jenner, who used to be Bruce Jenner, when she won Woman of the Year when she first made the transition. And he said that a lot of women looked at that and was just like, it's like on one hand you're happy, it's just like, oh, I mean, like you feel better about yourself and like you're choosing to express this part of you. But on the other hand, it's like, really though? It's like it would be like, a white person who is using blackface and choose to identify as black getting like, getting a BET award. I don't know, like something. I mean, like it's something of higher standing, But in either instance, it's kind of just like I can see why some woman would feel like it felt like they were robbed, kind of, because it's like, oh, yet again, like. And when I say this, I'm not saying this by just like a certain sense or whatever, but like he's like, yet again, another man, coming to step in a woman's place and take what's rightfully theirs. Now, not to say that, if you're a trans woman, that you're not a woman. Because if we're going by society's definition of what gender is, then by that definition, that's what you are. But obviously, like, again, as like what we believe, like there's, certain things like that just kind of like still remain, both physically and mentally. But yeah, so that's why it's such a controversial topic, because it's like, where's the line? Where's the distinction? Some might even argue, or just like, well, the difference is you are assigned a race at birth, but you're not assigned a gender at birth. And it's just like, now we're kind of stretching a little bit, because yes, the definition of gender is different now, but at the same time, you are assigned at the very least a sex at birth. And I believe that, like, Woman of the Year, like, is it based off gender or is it based off sex? You know what I'm saying?
I'll say this. So as I'm just listening to this conversation and I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go, a little deeper into just, oh, it's not natural, oh, it's not this. But it's still going to be from a biblical perspective, just because for me, I have no other real, like, main reasoning as to why.
Right.
But piggybacking off of that, it's very wrong to look at someone that is transgender or of same sex, or specifically transgender in this instance, and discriminate against them and be like, wow, I'm not going to talk to you because you're this and that. It's the same exact thing as being racist. It's hatred. But from what I believe, it's also wrong to just ignore it and pretend like it is not an issue. And I'm saying that not from someone that's like, oh, I'm gonna tell you how to live. We don't have the right to do that as people. We have our beliefs, though. We do have our beliefs. I am never gonna sit there and force somebody like, oh, you are gonna go to hell and you're gonna do this. This is gonna happen. Even though there's like scriptural things. There's certain sins in the Bible. Just like anything else is a sin, man. Just like lying is a sin. You know what I'm saying? Just like fornication is a sin. Adultery. It's all a sin. Now, the difference is that, in sin, the goal is to live right and turn away from it. You know what I'm saying? If you are transgender and you are proud about that, and you are a habitual liar that is a pastor in the church, they are both the same.
Equal thing. Bro.
Equal thing. So when I'm talking about sin and this sexual, the sexualness and gender and everything like that, I'm not bashing it, just like I'm not bashing a liar. I'm just talking about what's right and what's wrong from my opinion. But the thing is, a lot of that stems from things that have happened in the past. A lot of that stems from trauma. You know what I'm saying? A lot of that stems from insecurities in the past. Even though we were seeing a lot now about children at a young age that are coming out and things of that nature. Children at a young age that are saying, you know what, I'm no longer, a boy, I'm a girl, or vice versa. The biggest instance I can think of is Dwayne Wade's child. And just thinking about that, it's like, okay, a lot of people get this deceived, born that way. You're not born that way. Things happen, and things, happen in the past. Even small things to big events that can really alter the way that you're shaped.
And what we're saying by that is like, it hasn't been scientifically proven that like you can be born that way.
Absolutely. And it's just in a way just acknowledging, at least from my experience, every transgender person, every gay person, of same sex that I have met, we've had conversations, you know what I'm saying? We've had intimate, deep conversations about these things. And just listening, it stems back to, well, no, that it wasn't always like that. It's like that because of this, and that. But talking to them, it's like, some people, they don't even realize it. I struggle with a pornography addiction my whole life, which is also just as bad as that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Just as bad as that. The thing is, as the church, as people, as believers, and even as non-believers, we look at transgender people like they are in a different category. Like they are outsiders. It's like, you are, I feel led to talk about this. Growing up, I grew up in the church, and I'm not gonna spit any names or anything like that. But growing up, my dad's a pastor. He's been around a lot of different pastors and things of that nature. And I heard this story about this one pastor that was one of those type that was like very strong about the word, very into it. Would just come down, you know what I'm saying, on sin, call it out. He was sleeping around with people at the church, you know what I'm saying, and he was married, and it's just like, how can you condemn somebody for one thing when you're doing something that is just as bad?
And that's where this all kind of, I'm sorry, wait, were you like continuing something?
Oh no, just real quick, no, you're good, bro. It's just like, in saying that, we cannot condemn those people. But we do need to acknowledge that it is a problem, and that it is something that is, in a way, unhealthy. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of side effects. There's a lot of things about these surgeries and just about these types of sexualities that really takes a hold on your body. Just like people that practice, heterosexual people that practice, sex outside of marriage and that constantly switch partners. That's terrible for your body. It's not good. But as people, as a society, we can't sit there and ignore that. You know what I'm saying? We can't sit there and just ignore that there are not consequences and side effects to doing these surgeries, that there's not consequences and side effects to same-sex marriage and same-sex activities, that there's not consequences to, you know, heterosexual activities and things like that with multiple people and before marriage and things like that. We need to talk about these things.
Right. And so with that being said, like you pointed out a lot about like, you know, comparing the two, like it's equal and stuff like that, right? And so like I want to refocus the conversation in these last few minutes because like we really don't even have much time left, but I want to refocus this on like how do we compare? Like for instance, going back to Chappelle's example between you know, just like feminism and like, you know, women, trans women, and then, you know, racism, you know, with like black, you know, between black and white. So it's like one of these ideas that I kind of thought up after I initially watched the episode was just, I was just like, man, if I'm choosing to compare the two right now, and I'm just like, why is this one like hated and this one's not? Then I started thinking to myself, I'm just like, maybe is it potentially that one had a bigger struggle than the other? It's like maybe that's why it's okay to be transgender but not transracial, because it's like, oh well, you know, black people suffered so much to the point where it would just be a disgrace and a mockery if they were to do that. But then I was just like, that was my first initial like explanation to myself of like, maybe that's why this is okay and this is not. But then I was like, no, because then I started asking myself, okay, well, who really had the biggest struggle? Or do both of them have the equal amount of struggle? Because I started thinking to myself, I mean, obviously there was hundreds of years of slavery, right? You know, between, you know, like just with like black people, like you know, our ancestors, they've experienced that. And to this day, there are implications of that we have to live through and, you know, have to suffer through and try to like build from. But on the same time, like since the dawn of human history, women have been trampled upon in like all societies, bro. Like, you
Absolutely.
know, they'd get beat by their men partners, or like, you know, they used to not even be able to vote. They used to not even have a say in just like anything. All they were like, quote unquote, good for was just to cook and clean, and like they weren't seen as equals, just the same as, you know, black people weren't seen as equals in society. So they had different struggles, but both struggles were very severe. So I really can't sit here and tell myself or tell other people, it's just like, well, that's why this is acceptable, you know, because, well, you know, black people suffer more. Because like, I'm not really sure if I believe that. And again, this whole episode, you know, I encourage discussion. I'm actually going to post things and like leave room for people to comment and like give your thoughts about all these things that we talked about. Because if we're missing something, like I want to know, like I want to know, like, obviously I'm a Christian man, obviously like I believe in the Bible, and like that's going to be the foundation of all my beliefs. But in any conversation that I have, even if I'm talking to an atheist, if they try to tell me God isn't real, I will push aside everything I know for a second. I'm just like, all right, explain to me why he's not real. I will genuinely try to understand, like, why are you telling me he's not real? Because like, if I'm not open to what someone else is telling me, how can I expect them to be open to what I'm trying to tell them?
And
you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And being open doesn't mean that you alter your beliefs. As Christians, we don't
Right.
alter our beliefs. But it's like, how can you gotta preach the gospel. You know what I'm saying? You gotta put that out there. You have to. But at the same time, how can you effectively communicate with someone if you don't listen?
Exactly.
You know, it's just like,
And what does real listening look like?
it's like just, this thing can't talk to me, bro. You know what I'm saying? It can't talk to me. And if it was trying to talk to me, I wouldn't be able to hear it, because it's like I don't hear what this is saying. You
For
know
the
what I'm
people
saying?
who are listening, he's holding a pencil.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. holding a pencil. But it's like a lot of times sometimes as believers, we see these people, we talk to people and we try to minister to people from the perspective of like a brick wall. We don't hear a thing they're saying. We're not listening at all. It's just like, okay, they're saying, and we're just like, yeah, but this, and that, you gotta listen.
Exactly.
You gotta be able to
listen.
have a
You
conversation.
know what's crazy about that is this pencil, obviously it can't talk back to you, but you know what it can do? It can write. It can be used as a means of communication if you use it.
That's good,
If you
yeah.
use it to your disposal. But
Yeah.
if you don't use it, it's just gonna take up space, and that's it. So ultimately, man, like honestly, like I wanted to go deeper into this, but we just don't have time. You know, we really don't have time. We may or may not do a part two. I don't know. Depends on what you guys want. You know, maybe we'll like see if that's like demanded enough. But like, man, like this is a lot. And like I said, I want to hear you guys' thoughts about this. Let us know. Like, talk to us. It's like, hey, Noah, Josh, like, you know, you kind of had me in some areas, but like, I don't think you really had me in this area. Like, I believe this instead. And like, tell us what you think. And then we can have this conversation about it. Join us for our Empowerment Mondays when we go live and we can talk about these things.
Absolutely. And then just to add off of that really quick, like, you know, we're talking and we're having this conversation and we're giving our thoughts because we care, you know what I'm saying? Because we're passionate, because we want to help people grow and just help people see different perspectives. And we're helping each other see different perspectives too. We're up here learning. Like, we're not these we're on a podcast, so no, that's not this at all.
I don't even know anything, bro. I don't know anything.
Me either, bro.
Like,
I'm learning, man. But
who am I?
I'm just saying that to say, like, we're not just talking at you just to give a speech. We want you guys to engage too. Talk to us. If you feel like we missed something or we're off, just like you said, please, because this is a conversation. This is not just a conversation between me and him. This is a conversation between us.
We're asking real questions, but they require real answers. So, I mean, like I said, this is cancel culture is such a big thing, and I'll wrap up with this thought because this is gonna be like almost 40-minute long episode. I feel like cancel culture is such a huge thing in our generation, and it's to the point where like people don't want to like even mention or like talk about anything with like the hopes of like, oh well, I don't want people to hate me or I don't want to not be relevant anymore. And this podcast is still very much in its early phases, so it's like, I mean, what would really happen to me anyways? But you know, still like, I'm trying to go somewhere. We're trying to go somewhere with this podcast. And like, we want to know, like, we want y'all to know right off the bat, like, we want to talk about everything. You know, we want this to be a real and a safe space where people don't feel hated, where they don't feel attacked. But we can talk and be like, hey, this is what I think. What do you think? You know, type of deal. Because that's important for growth. It's important for my growth. It's important for y'all's growth. And like, I know myself, like, I've done many things that are wrong. Like, I've messed up so much in the past, some more recent than others. So many things that you can get canceled for. But at the end of the day, it's just like, when you make peace with all of those things and you move forward, you just have to do that, and you have to put your thoughts out there. You know, so like, cancel culture is such a huge thing in our society. And if we do a part two, I might want to dive deeper into specifically what it is and like, I don't know, like, is it beneficial or not? That was kind of what this episode was gonna be, but it turned into something different, and I'm cool with that. I'm very much cool with that. So on that note, I hope you guys really enjoyed this. You know, I know it was kind of a more serious tone than other episodes have been, but you know, thanks for staying there with us. If you made it to the end, we appreciate you, and we really want to know your thoughts. So other than that, man, we love you guys. We'll see y'all later.
Peace.
We hope you guys enjoyed that video, and we have a lot more content coming your way. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and tune in every Saturday at 7 a.m. on whatever listening platform you may be listening to for a new episode of Empower. Catch you guys later. That works. That works.